Yes, good afternoon, and thank you for inviting me here to speak to you about my concerns regarding the allocation of water supplies from the Hetch Hetchy system. If we go back to 2008, at that time I was a member of the Revenue Bond Oversight Committee, and as a member I'd requested that I be allowed to attend as an observer the negotiations that were ongoing to renegotiate the 1984 water sales agreement for the new 2009 water sales agreement. These are 25-year events. That was refused. And then it became known that the new agreement would cut San Francisco's Hetch Hetchy supplies back from approximately average of 88 million gallons per day to 81 million gallons per day. Of this, 7 million gallons a day would have come from bore water or recycled groundwater. And this was new because San Francisco had never, during the period of the Hetch Hetchy system, had to use groundwater to augment Hetch Hetchy supplies. I'll give you a come up here. Where is it? This period here, if you extend it through to 2007-8, which is the period before it actually is 89 million gallons. Here, the previous period, these suburban deliveries have remained about the same, 160, 163 on average. And as you can see, the system deliveries were 250. Now, this means simply that the new allocations of 184 million gallons a day to the Peninsula customers and 81 to San Francisco set the system deliveries at 265 million gallons a day. And many of us queried that because in 2000, in a joint study by BAWA, which was the predecessor agency, the Bay Area Water Supply and Conservation Agency, had estimated that the long-term statistically significant ability of the Hetch Hetchy system, given hydrologic and hydrology conditions, was 239 million gallons a day. And now we see an agreement built. We see, and that study that I just quoted you. Let me see if I got it here. Was called the Water Supply Master Plan, a water resource strategy for the SFPUC system, and it was a joint study by the San Francisco Public Utilities Commission and the Bay Area Water Users Association. That was before they became an agency. So let's go back. So we held a meeting. We formed a group called the Transparency Working Group, I believe. And let me see here. Oh, and here's I looked at all the various numbers and times, and you can see that there doesn't seem to be any statistical reason to reallocate the water the way it was being reallocated in 2009. And we basically approached it and said, one, it is unfair to San Francisco to cut us back. Two, does this recycling facility using groundwater, are we sharing those costs as part of the Hetchy system, as part of a capital improvement program that increases the total capacity of the system by 4 million gallons a day, or are we internalizing it? It appears we're internalizing it. And then we also stressed that all this talk that we were being told to go from 162 to 184, or, you know, it changes, the average changes about how many years you get into it. And since 2009, I've got the data from 1985 through 2007. I didn't have that when I wrote this. And anyway, but we kept saying, look, you can't make these type of calculations without talking about demand. And at that time, we told them exactly what we told them in 2018 and what we're telling them now. You have to subsume elasticities of demand. You know, how does a price increase affect demand? And econometric studies done by the Office of Economic Analysis and myself show that even when you consider multivariate analysis with demand being a function of price, income, housing starts, anything, interest rates, all the things that go together to make a significant equation that makes sense, that the price increases just submerge the other factors. But yet in 2014 and again in 2018, the SFPUC published documents that showed that regardless of rate shock, I would call it, demand would not go down. Well, that's just not true. Looking at historical analysis, that has happened. And then again in 2019, they published their 10-year financial plan for the SFPUC retail division, and they conceded 0.5% decrease per annual due to their rate increases. But that's way off base. That underestimates completely what will happen. And this seems to be a function of them tying their analytical abilities to consultants. So let's see. Oh, and then we don't have a study of it here, but a meeting was held at City Hall, and a water expert came in, and the water expert showed the Tuolumne River with a straight line, 100, I think it was 1.8 million acre feet, and then it showed a line with ours, what was it? I think it was 1.8, so it was about 200 acre feet per year, 200,000 acre feet per year that we would use, which is about 85% of 265, because we get 15% of our water from local sources, not all the Tuolumne River. Let's see if I got there. And you can see that Tuolumne River doesn't flow like that at all. It goes up and down depending on the water year or a drought year. And what's this here? And this shows you how we extract water from the Tuolumne River. We're not allowed to put our straw in unless the water flows about 2,300 feet per second at LaGrange, and then only if the thirst by the irrigation districts has not been squelched. And then for the period April 15th, for the next 60 days, we can't touch it unless it goes to over 4,003 cubic feet per second. But that wasn't what we were presented. We presented this picture, which I don't have a copy of it anymore, which showed a straight line for the the average Tuolumne River flows, which I think are about 1.8 million acre feet, and the house is about 200,000 acre feet. And they're both straight lines, and all the big difference was to show that there'd be no trouble for the Tuolumne River to provide that water. But that's just not accurate. The Tuolumne River is a hard-working river. It's got many, many demands. So it's got irrigation district, it's got environmental, it's got the fishing industry, it's got recreational industry. That was not a really fair display. Anyway, we lost that, but I could not figure out where they got their, that's not the one, where the 265 came from. Well, the 265 is a contract amount. What they did was they took the average. They first of all gave, in negotiating, they gave to all the peninsula customers supply increases, supply guarantee increases. And then they assumed that the Haywood system, which has a no cap amount of water supply constraint, they can take as much water, they can request as much water from the Hetchy system as they want, and we have to supply it under this 1962 agreement. And yes, the increases given to these customers on average is about 27%. And then they added together all the wholesale customers, excluding Haywood and San Jose and Santa Clara, because they're interruptible, the last two. And they said that that amount of water came to 161, and then they said that it looks like we're going to forecast that Haywood will take on average of 25 million gallons a day, and then if they take the historical takes from San Jose and Santa Clara, which is a total of 8 million gallons a day, what does that give them? That would give them a total of 194 million gallons a day in basically what in guarantees. And if you add in San Francisco's historic demand, the total system average comes to 284 million gallons a day. That's just, I believe, unsustainable, even if the taps were just turned on and they let the water run. But price has to be imputed into this equation. That seems to be missing in all this analysis, even when they do their forecasts, where they assume price has no effect on demand. And anyway, so that's where I came. That's where I come from on this situation. So what I did was I also said, where did they come up with this number? So I traced a normal distribution for the of numbers for the intra-contract period, and then I fitted a z-score, a graph of z. This is using z-scores normally, and then I put the z-scores derived from the observation or the actual contract years. Now there's some disjointedness. There's some disjointedness in this because we only have annual data, but I have a belief that if we had daily data, the z-scores would be just about the same, and that's validated by the test. So, and here's an example, by the way, going back. Here's the list. Like here, in the blue is the average demand for this period. That's the only period I could get this data for. And these are the post 2009 guarantees. In every case, they're given more water to all of these cities in the peninsula, and they're cutting us back. San Francisco's cutting back. And let's see if I got something. And I also did this. That's the z-scores. And then, oh yeah, these are the deliveries versus, this is the Hetchy deliveries versus the Hetchy deliveries if they were normally distributed. They're so close that I think that they, I don't know where, and 265 is a statistical outlier. 265 occurs is expected every 23 years. Anyway, so that's about all I wanted to say today, sports fans. So if you have any questions, give me a call, or write me at brian@h2oecon.com. Yes, that's it, brian@h2oecon.com. Thank you very much for listening, and I hope it makes sense.